Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Monday, November 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, George Kurt, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. How you doing today, Cody?
I'm trying not to cry. Pour one out for Tucker.
Tough game in multiple ways for you this weekend. I feel bad. I was able to take in a couple other games more closely since it was a bye week, and that was not a good one for me to take.
Wait, are we not allowed to like each other? Or is that start on Thursday?
I think that starts Thursday.
Okay.
I mean, especially it's a Monday game, so that gives us a little more buffer, right?
Oh, next Monday is going to be... Find a replacement.
Just have two random people do the show that aren't us.
Yeah, let's get Marcus and Kempe and just let them have fun, figure it out.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. Well, if you're looking forward to that, or whatever Cody and I trash talk on Thursday, make sure you follow us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok to get even more than you do from the show, and watch us live Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30 East on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can always DM us with your fancy questions or drop them in the chat live when we are live at those times. Let's jump in, Cody, and see what is happening.
I'm dropping the ball right now. I was still looking at the Halloween backgrounds. Here we go.
With how early we start celebrating holidays, you can probably make the argument you're celebrating Halloween for next year.
I'm not a subscriber of that, so let's not do that.
Okay, cool. Well, it would be fairly normal today, but that's fine. The other thing that I've seen that was fairly normal today is way too many pictures of Jane Daniels' elbow on my social media feed because no one was shy to post that today, and that was a very ugly injury that happened in the game last night. But good news, x-rays were negative. He's not expected to need surgery to repair it, and he might even return this season. That is insane to me.
X-rays are negative. That was... So, whatever. We're only 2 minutes in. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a side story.
This is the best part of the show. It's fine.
Because I do a lot of high school football broadcasts, and one of the worst injuries I ever saw was very reminiscent of the Jaden Daniels injury. It was the same thing. The running back was going the other way. The elbow completely goes in the opposite direction, smacks the ground. I saw the same thing. I was like, he's got to be done. And to get that kind of good news that there's a chance for him to return this season is incredible. I hope it all works out for them. There's still a lot of football to be left to play. I know this was the last week in the single digits. We hit week 10 as we turn around next week. So, but there's still a lot of football to be left. The Commanders are struggling. I'm very interested to see how this injury plays a fact into maybe how aggressive they would be over the next 36 hours as we approach the trade deadline, or if you're listening to this on Tuesday, only a couple more hours left of the trade deadline, but it looked a lot worse than what the results showed, and the league is better when Jaden Daniels is at quarterback. So
it is. Even if he was, like some people are saying, sophomore slumping, he's been dealing with multiple different injuries this year. I number one, don't like seeing guys go down, especially like that. And two, yeah, it's much more entertaining seeing guys like him on the field. You can say the same thing about all the top end quarterbacks. It's sad Joe Burrow's not out there. It's sad we missed Lamar for how many weeks, but even outside of quarterbacks, it's but I was absolutely floored to see that it was, I guess, a clean dislocation, and I'm happy to hear it. And at least it seems like if he doesn't return this season, which I would assume how they're finishing up the year would help determine that. If they keep on the track they're on right now and they're not in the playoff chase, I don't think they would rush him back. But he should be good for next year, if at the worst. And it's good to see it was his non-throwing arm as well, for anyone that didn't see that.
How could you not? It's been everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Cody. I know you don't want to talk about it, but number two, the other big news: Tucker Kraft tore his ACL in the Packers and Panthers game yesterday.
Just brutal. Just brutal. Came off a career high game against Pittsburgh, having a breakout season, like putting his name up there with the someone call it the new era of tight ends. Your Trey McBride, your Samuel Laporta, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers. that new era. He was putting himself in that category to be one of those top guys, if not the top guy. I believe he's like top 5 in yards after the catch of any receiver, not just tight ends. So like very instrumental to the Packers offense. It's also his birthday today. Like what worse birthday gift to get, oh, you're out for the season with a torn ACL. And I think it's going to really hurt this Packers offense moving forward. He was the guy that you relied on for fantasy, which, you know, that's just a small part of this injury. But yeah, it definitely sucks to lose Tucker for the Packers and the NFL in general.
It really does. And I like the way that you put, like, he was solidifying himself as part of the new era of tight end, because that is a great way to put the new group of guys that have been reliable in fantasy. And I don't know if he was the top guy, but he was at least solidifying himself as top 3 at this point in the season. And, you know, slight inconsistencies like every other tight end. I hope we can have him come back next year and be as productive, at least, you know, after he gets himself back up to speed next year. I hope he doesn't miss any time, considering he did it, you know, early November. Sometimes players miss the beginning of the season for that. Sometimes they're back sometime in training camp. But hoping for the best out of Tucker Kraft. And it's not somebody that we're going to have an easy time filling in fantasy either.
Absolutely. And I do think Tucker is one of those guys that, you know, barring a setback, which you can never predict, he's gonna work his way back. I think he's going to be one of those guys to get activated off the PUP list, like right at the end of training camp, and then might end up missing week 1, week 2, but not the first 4 games. That's kind of where I'm looking like at his timeline, but I'm just to do with the podcast.
We can all guess as much as we want to, but we'll definitely have more news on him in the offseason. Moving to Houston, CJ Stroud left early in their game against Denver this week with a concussion. Obviously, concussion protocol, we'll have to see where he falls as the practice window starts this week. But I did hear today that he was feeling better today, so he's hoping to progress through protocol to play next week.
Yeah, that was a gnarly hit he took. Not so much like the hit itself, but just the way his head snapped off the ground, which we see often is what is a big cause for these concussions. And that was a really close game between the Texans and the Broncos in general. And you have to think, like, if he didn't get out, could the Texans have upset them? So something we'll have to pay attention to as we progress through the week.
Definitely. And that's exactly how I expected a game like that to go too, because it honestly, not a lot of people have been looking at Houston's defense, but they're one of the better ones in the league so far this year. And then Denver's defense, we all know, gets the clout with some of the star players they have there. So 18-15, that low scoring game seemed like the kind of way that should go. But you have to wonder if it would have been different if Stroud did not get knocked out.
Yeah, for sure.
I can move us on. You're good.
Okay.
Moving to the second big scare of the year for Puka Nacua, who left early in their game with a rib injury, but he is quote unquote okay, is how they put it. I'm assuming no breaks, probably just a like bruised sternum kind of deal or bruised rib. So it sounds like there's still an opportunity for him to play next week, which is good considering he just came back from another injury happened pre-bye.
Yeah, and I mean, it is one of those things where, you know, we've seen guys play with rib fractures and stuff like that. I mean, look at Juwan Jennings. He's playing with, what he say, 5? So
I think he was dealing with something with his shoulder this week too. The man just gets knocked over, keeps ticking.
But definitely worth monitoring in that situation as well with Puka. At least they have guys that have been around. They have Devontae Adams there that can take some of the load off. Like, that's why they brought him in to help. I mean, Puka is, you know, still a really good player even when healthy, and this Rams team is cooking right now. So hopefully he is back and better. But even like Puka has slowed off a little bit after his first month of the season. Obviously, injuries play a factor into that as well. But hopefully it is okay and he's back to balling out.
Crazy to me you say he's slowed a little bit, and even though he got hurt and didn't play a full game, he still caught a ridiculous touchdown and scored 20 fantasy points in half PPR yesterday.
I just meant in terms of like the yards, targets. I mean, it's still up there.
100%, yes. No, he's not on pace to break any records anymore.
He's not Jackson Smith and Jigba right now.
Oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba is insane right now.
Like those two are like toe for toe, and JSN has put some space into it, but they're both still at the top of their game.
100%. But so good to see. Hopefully we got Puka this week. We were going to give you an update on him on Thursday between our bickering arguments about the Monday Night Football game. Brian Thomas, another young receiver who we were hoping was going to keep taking a step. He ended up leaving early with an ankle injury prior to OT in that game. Don't have much info on that, but obviously he didn't have a great game beforehand either. It's just infuriating trying to play Brian Thomas this year so far.
Yeah, it has been. And you mentioned, or you didn't mention, but it's on the rundown. Travis Hunter hit IR on Friday after we recorded the episode last week. So I believe their offensive pass catchers were like Parker Washington, Tim Patrick, and I don't remember the guy that caught the big play across the middle as they were driving to set the game up for overtime. But definitely interesting pieces left there in Jacksonville, to say the least, and would not be surprised if they're one of the teams trying to make a move for a wide receiver. I've definitely heard / seen on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, that they have called the Packers 3 times so far trying to get Romeo Doubs. Packers obviously keep trying
Why would
because Dobbs' expiring contract, they took Matthew Golden. It obviously, now that everyone's getting banged up, but he was like a lot of buzz coming out of training camp, like he might be the odd man out once Watson comes back. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Dobbs is getting moved, but at least the Jags seem to be in the market for potentially adding another pass catcher.
not Tim Patrick, by the way, Tim Jones.
Oh, did I say Tim Patrick?
Don't know. Yeah, don't know who that is. The guy you were probably thinking of though is De'Ami Brown.
No, it was Tim Jones. That's why I didn't.
The third guy who you mentioned, like I don't remember who it was. It's probably De'Ami Brown.
Okay.
Parker Washington by far led the pass catchers there, though. And then the other thing I was going to mention about Travis Hunter is they did say he was going to have scans and checkup done today for the injury. Haven't heard anything about that yet. If anything comes out while we're on the air, we'll throw the breaking news graphic up and give you that update.
As long as I'm ready for it.
I mean, I don't know what you need to prepare for to throw
the button. I'm never prepared.
I can even hit the button for you. It's fine. We're gonna be okay.
Okay.
Finally, Harbaugh says that the Chargers will not activate Omarion Hampton until after their Week 12 bye. Obviously, note there for fantasy owners who were hoping to have him for a stretch run. 2 weeks is all you're going to get in the fantasy regular season with him before you go into the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, and that it was like it wasn't even like he's getting activated. It's like it'll be at least until after the Week 12 bye, which definitely sucks for Hampton. I think people were hoping this would be like one of those 4-week injuries and he'd be back, but it's going to take a little bit longer. And hopefully he comes back at full strength and ready to go. But they also lost Joe Alt again, this time for the year. And we saw what this team went through those couple weeks when they lost both their starting right tackle and starting left tackle. Herbert was getting hit. They couldn't keep him upright. That's when the running game really struggled a little bit. So this Chargers team that, competes really well, they're starting to get a lot of bumps and bruises that I'm not so sure they can overcome.
Yeah, and you mentioned that both tackles, they lost them before. They actually did lose their other tackle in that game as well to a groin injury. So hopefully we're not in complete deja vu, because I don't know if Justin Herbert can handle it again.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. They're still sitting pretty at 6-3, second place in their division as we speak right now. But like I mentioned, we're just now approaching the halfway point. I know when you hit those double digit in weeks, it feels like it's getting close, but there's still a lot of games left to be played and a lot of football to unravel. So we'll see how they overcome these losses.
Can I ask you a fantasy strategy question?
Anytime.
Okay. So I actually had this discussion with Greg, who is in the Couch GMs World Cup. So shout out, Greg, if you're listening in. He, in another league that he's in, was 8-0 coming into this week. And being a virtual lock for the fantasy playoffs, He was like, what are some of the best things that I can do to set myself up for like a playoff run? So something that he actually did that I thought was a good thing to bring up, he traded one of his like borderline flex guys for Omarion Hampton to a team who is desperate for wins right now. I think the owner of Hampton had 3 wins coming into the week. So he now has a legit fantasy running back for the playoffs. And that was something that was like, that's actually a really good move. So do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a solid move. I mean, now that he obviously probably made this trade before hearing today. It's going to be at least, week 12. So
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to get him for 3 more weeks. Like you said, he's 8-0. And that's probably, when you can start looking at some of those things of what you can do, what you can't do. But making moves for guys coming off, like off the IR, checking out the waiver things, making sure you have your handcuffs in place. And you don't have to start doing this early now because a lot of things will change too, but like start looking for those guys that you're streaming on a weekly basis, or which defenses have the best matchups those playoff weeks. Like we'll cover that in the next couple of weeks. But if you're sitting 8-0, 7-1, about to be 9-0 or 8-1, like you can even take a little bit of a head start on your league to look at some of those things.
Definitely. So if you guys have questions about anything like that, if you're in that situation, or if you're in the opposite, make sure you just drop those questions in the comments. We'll definitely try to work out with you what the best plan of attack is. In the meantime, Cody, why don't we jump into our reality check? Wanted to start out this segment talking Panthers because they're in a really interesting situation at running back. Now, I saw a stat after that game against the Packers that in games where Rico Dowdle was the lead back, led in touches, they are 4-0 this year. They also have Chuba Hubbard on the roster, who obviously they gave a big contract to last year. Part of it was he had a big breakout year. Part of it was he was, literally the only thing they had on that offense. They needed some kind of talent playmaker there. And I want to say Chuba doesn't like tank's not empty on him. He's still going to be a solid player. But is there an argument that the Panthers should trade Chuba, or I can even throw in, should they trade Dowdle at the deadline if they're not planning on competing this year because they don't need both?
Well, I think they should at least be open to the idea. I don't think it's like I have to trade Chuba. Like we say they're not competing, but they are 5-4. Like they're not, a bottom barrel team. And obviously the Bucks are playing really good right now, so it might be hard to come back in the division. But if they could, pull an upset and a head to head matchup or something like that, they could make some noise for sure. But to your question about trading Chuba, I think if the right opportunity presents it, I mean, you did see Rico Dowdle, tweak his groin. He was able to play through it, but he was constantly having the massage gun on it. Um, and I think he's just a good change of pace back to have on the team. And he's still one of the captains, still one of the leaders. So this ascending team, I think it might be better to keep a guy like Chuba Hubbard just for what he does for team morale. And you're probably not going to get a ton for him because you just gave him that contract extension. Although it probably makes it easier to trade him in that sense because the guaranteed money would be paid by Carolina. But there's not a team that's also like screaming off the top of my head thinking, they should go out and get like a Chuba Hubbard. Because although, I mean, Kansas City needs a running back in the worst way, whether that's a Brees Hall, a Devon Achane, or even like a Chuba Hubbard on a lower scale. Like that one could be an interesting, but I don't think anybody wants to see that because they're just hoping that this Chiefs dynasty dies down.
No, true. So maybe then the answer is, do you try to get value out of Rico Dowdle? But I feel like that's tough to say if you're a young team, not maybe necessarily being like, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but if you think you can be a playoff team and try to build that winning culture, it doesn't look great to go trade the guy who's been the spark plug for your offense. But you have to think it's going to be tough for them to re-sign him when they already have so much money sunk into the running back room with that big contract on Chuba, and they only signed Dowdle to the 1-year contract. I would think Dowdle will command some kind of money if he keeps this up this season.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to, for a lack of a better word, bench a team captain, obviously Hubbard is still involved, but they came out and said this is going to be we're going to run through him and Hubbard's going to be the change of pace. And they showed that on Sunday. I think you're going to ride with Dowdle for the rest of the year. And then if somebody wants Hubbard, or maybe you keep Hubbard, he's been banged up a lot. You keep him healthy. You understand you might lose Dowdle. I'm sure they have plenty of money to keep him if they want, but if they lose them, they have a solid piece in the backfield heading into next season too.
They're not in a bad spot at the running back position regardless, really. But just something I thought I'd bring up as like a kind of an interesting situation on a team that's young that might want to have, get assets.
Yeah, if they can, like, I don't want to say New England either because nobody wants, more running back controversy, but like a New England,
I didn't have a Travion Henderson rant planned for this episode, but you're gonna make me do it.
but like, because they've obviously been in the market, like a Pittsburgh, if they really wanted to go all in, like with the, because they're just running out Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell. I mean, those are some of the team names. And Arizona, if they get a win tonight, could they like Trey Benson? Like, how much do they like Trey Benson? How soon is he ready to come back? Or are they just all in on Bam Knight? Like, those are some of the teams that could potentially, get a boost.
It's true. I mean, the first name that came to my head, honestly, when I was thinking about it, was Cardinals. But then when you look at it, they're a 2-win team in a division with 3 6-win teams. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to buy.
And I mean, if Jaden Daniels get hurt, you could argue Chu would be a good fit in Washington. But now that Daniels is hurt, like, does that make sense for them to buy now too for this season?
Yeah, it almost feels like the running back market is pretty dry. If you're looking outside of a potential Chiefs trade, and the Patriots would do it. They really would, and it's so frustrating. But I mean, it doesn't matter if they have their third string running back in there, Terrell Jennings, to get the touchdown, and Henderson gets 14 carries, but didn't turn into a whole lot, unfortunately.
Yep. I think Chuba's going to stay put.
I think he is too, but I figured I'd bring it up as an option. Do you want to answer a fan question before we move on?
You bet.
Cool. Bronson on YouTube. Trade Olave and Bill for Pittman or Downs. See, I think Downs is an overreaction, but Pittman, I don't mind.
I was going to say I'm not doing it for Downs. Pittman, I could get behind that one. I would wait till tomorrow though before I press accept on this. If this was an offer to you, I'd wait to make sure Olave is staying put in New Orleans. Like, if he got moved somewhere else, like, I might be willing to say he's talented enough. I kind of want to see what he does in this new team, and you might have to wait a couple weeks for him to get situated. But Bill has struggled the last couple weeks. Don't think he had a great game last night, so another sub 10-point week for him. Olave has been pretty inconsistent. Pittman has actually been fairly consistent all season. So today, I like this trade. Again, I would wait until tomorrow afternoon to make sure Olave stays put before accepting it. But I agree. Downs is an overreaction, and all I see him do is fumble, punts, and drop balls at the end zone. So, I mean, he did more than that. But
yeah, I know. But no, I mean, another game where they gave Bill double-digit carries. I can't talk today. I'm sorry, everybody. Double-digit carries. He didn't put in more than 50 yards. He didn't score the touchdown. The touchdown went to Chris Rodriguez, and then Jaden Daniels scored a rushing touchdown as well. Like, I think there's potential there. And I mean, obviously, for running back needy teams, I don't think you should drop him. And I think there's still a chance he has a breakout, but I'm kind of losing hope more and more. And then losing Daniels and having Mariota in there isn't going to help the case. It might not hurt it, but it's definitely not going to help it. So I think I'm with Cody. I would make sure Olave doesn't get traded to somewhere where he could be a stud. Maybe New England's the team for that. Like, with how Drake May's playing, if you put Olave in there with Diggs and Kayshon Boutte, like, I think that would be a really solid trio, and there's a chance Olave has value. But as long as that doesn't happen, Pittman has been consistent enough. I like that trade.
Yep. I'd throw Pittsburgh in there as well, but they did sign MBS today, so maybe they're not that he is going to be like the like the guy in there, but they could be like, okay, that we can't find or not going to want to give up enough high enough pick to get one of these wide receivers that may be available. So we'll get a guy that is familiar with Aaron Rodgers, and we'll just keep rolling with the people around, wide receiver 2 by committee.
Think they regret trading Pickens yet?
Probably, but I don't think him and Rodgers would have got along. So
there's potential of that, and that means more than you think it would.
Actually, I take that back. Rodgers and Pickens would have made it work for sure. The media would have made it a big deal any time that there was like a drop ball or a missed hand signal or something like that, but they would have got along just fine.
Speaking of Packers, I know he's not a Packer anymore, but I had to try to find a transition. Will the Packers find consistency on offense? I think that's kind of been their big problem. Whenever they've struggled, it's just like the offense disappears sometimes.
Yeah, and honestly, with the Tucker Kraft injury, it seems scary, right? Like, they're 9 points away from being 8-0. All 3 of their losses are their tie, essentially. Came on games they missed field goals, but they also had the Cowboys game. I'll take that one out. But the Browns and the Panthers offense no-showed, couldn't get anything going. Their offensive line is really struggling right now to run block, but they still want to run the ball. Like, it's just been an up and down year, and it is hard to understand if they're going to find their consistency. And it doesn't feel like that, especially coming off a game like that, right? I mean, I think since like week 3, they're averaging like 7.5 points in the first half. And then sometimes they have big second halves, like against the Steelers, where they end up scoring 35 points or 34 points or whatever it was. And then they have games like this one where it takes, 5 trips to the red zone to finally get into the end zone. Like, it was just an inconsistent day. But the one thing I will say, and I think back to last year, and maybe this is just me being hopeful, maybe this is just me trying to be the optimistic Packers fan. I think yesterday was a dark day for Green Bay. Losing Tucker Kraft is going to help. But if I think back to last year, week 1, Jordan Love hurts his MCL, completely tears it, misses the next couple games. They basically reinvent the run game because they have to. They don't have Jordan Love. They got to find a way. They just brought in Malik Willis. Can losing arguably their best, no, not arguably, their best non-offensive or best offensive player, not the quarterback, and Tucker Kraft, can losing him cause them to go, let's reevaluate our team. Let's look at the drawing board. Maybe we'll play a little bit more of this personnel. Maybe we'll do a little bit of this. Maybe we'll try the quick passing game a little bit more. Maybe we'll get our first round rookie involved. In some weird alternate universe, does losing Tucker Kraft help them not get better? Not saying that. Help them be like, let's try to find something that works for us. Let's stop. And they weren't even like super featuring him. That's the devil's advocate point of this is like, he was inconsistent too. Like, some weeks he'd have 10 targets, some weeks he'd have 3. And it's like, guys, you gotta get him involved more on a more consistent basis. So consistency, it's the biggest question, and hopefully they can find it. Or honestly, they have a really tough stretch coming up the end of the season, and a team that people were talking about. I think they still have the 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl. Could be a team that's like fighting for a playoff spot if they can't find this consistency on the offense.
Definitely. And I was kind of trying to look back and see this game right here scream trap game. You played the Steelers, great defense, consistent team, solid contender in the AFC. Eagles next week. Some people would argue the best team in the NFC. And, Panthers falling in the middle. Could have fallen victim to the trap game. Look back to the Browns game week before, Commanders team just came off of an NFC championship game berth. Week after, Cowboys, there's always hype that comes with the Cowboys, no matter how good or bad that they're doing. Maybe that was a trap game too. The other thing is the Browns defense doesn't get enough credit. Like, they are such a bad team, but if you just isolate their defense, they are amazing. So kind of hard. You kind of can't fault teams for playing bad on offense against good defenses sometimes. But like, the other thing is Carolina doesn't have a defense. And besides now the Tucker Kraft situation, they're actually getting healthier are the Packers. I don't know when the timeline for Jaden Reed is. I don't think it would hurt for him to come back either, even though they have a lot of pass catchers. Josh Jacobs still kind of going through some things, but hopefully as he keeps getting away from that, he gets healthier. They obviously got Christian Watson back, who, even if he's not the most consistent receiver, he provides something with stretching the field that defenses have to think about. Like, maybe this is the situation where they have to reevaluate their offense. Maybe you start seeing a couple more deep shots. You see a little more emphasis on the run, and maybe Matthew Golden to start to get more involved because they need somebody to fill in the targets that are lost by Tucker Kraft. Maybe if Jaden Reed comes back and you start getting that quick passing game going once he's back, that's great too. But I obviously don't know what his timeline is. And this could be the turning point for the Packers. The only thing is I'm still unsure that they're going to be more consistent after this, just because even though there's other guys there, losing your top weapon is very tough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Golden even got banged up. Now they expect him to be day to day. That is one thing worth noting. And I think part of, like, from a Panthers perspective, like, I do want to give them credit. They had a really good game plan. They found some weird quirk. Their special teams coordinator was on, like, we're going to take the ball because it was a really windy day in Lambeau Field. We're going to take the ball so we get to pick which way we kick in the second half, so that we know we get the wind to our back in the fourth quarter, and that paid dividends because you saw them miss the extra point with the going into the win, and then they made the field goal going with the win. So give them props for all of that. There's also, like, a weird phenomenon in the NFL this season. There's been 7 games now where a team has lost by 30 or more points. Those 7 teams are now 4-3 the following week. And they are, so just goes to show on, like, how close the whole NFL is. Like, I think that I saw this is the first time that, like, every team has 2 or more losses before week 10 in NFL history, or
Wow.
in a really long time. So, like, there's just, like, these teams are a lot closer. It's hard to be really good every day. And, you know, you saw the Bills lose to the Falcons and they blow out the Panthers, right? Like, you saw the Packers, they beat the Lions, they beat the Commanders, but then they lose to the Browns and the Panthers. Like, it's a weird year, and that's a part of it. And hopefully this Packers team can find consistency, but I'm sure these people are ready for me to stop talking about the Packers.
Did you see the other weird special teams quirk that happened this year after a kickoff after a personal foul penalty?
No.
So in the Steelers game, I believe it was, Steelers were kicking off following a personal foul on the other team. So they're kicking from the 50. So their special teams coordinator told them to kick it out of bounds. If you kick it out of bounds after it hits in the landing zone, the ball doesn't go to the 40-yard line. It goes 25 yards away from the kickoff spot. So you essentially got a touchback at the 25 instead of a kickoff out of bounds penalty to the 40.
That's big brain right there. Did not know
Isn't
that.
it? Yeah, so there's a loophole that's going to be cleaned up in the offseason. You know that for a fact. But that was one of the most interesting things I've seen in a long time, because he kicks it out of bounds, they throw the flag, and the special teams coordinator's on the sideline pumping his fist and going nuts. It's like, what? Until the ref announces the ball's placed at the 25.
Interesting, because I've actually wondered what's the point of taking, like, when you get a penalty, like the same thing I mean, it worked out in their favor in the Panthers game because they missed the extra point. But, like, you see it all the time. 15-yard penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct after the play, excess on the kickoff. Like, I'm like, with the new landing zone rules, why does that even, like, why would you ever do that? Like, you can't do the surprise onside kick where if you miss it, it's still at the 40. Like, you can't do anything like that. But now be paying attention to that. Kicking the ball out of bounds, get better field position than you do if you on a normal kickoff.
Yeah, so something to keep an eye on. And maybe that rule is in there on purpose because of what you said. Like, then that penalizes the team that had the personal foul more. Like, if the kicker's good enough to make it bounce or you'll go out of bounds between the 20 and the goal line, it's, 25-yard line. Maybe that's just something that's in there on purpose that I didn't know about.
Yeah, maybe it was added in this new kickoff stuff too.
Yeah. So even though we watch plenty of football here, we're always still learning something new every single week, because some of these coaches know what they're doing.
Yeah, And the NFL doesn't sometimes too, and they're learning on the fly as well.
It's true. It's funny seeing the NFL scramble when something happens that doesn't usually happen. It's a great time. But I'm going to stick with the Steelers. I feel like you've been kind of waiting for this because you haven't been on the Colts bandwagon. Did the Steelers defense finally expose the Colts?
No. I mean, if you if I said you got to wait a couple more weeks to see that they're actually good, I'm gonna have to wait a couple more weeks to see that now they're quote unquote exposed. Like they also had like muff punts and stuff like that in this game. It was a weird game in general. 5 turnovers, like that doesn't happen too often. I mean, credit to the Steelers defense and special teams unit for causing those. But expose, not ready to go there yet.
I think the biggest thing that they did, and I'm interested to see how teams attack the Colts now on defense in the future, is they're the first team to shut down Jonathan Taylor. And maybe I'm the person who should take credit for that one because I 100% jinxed him after I brought up last week how he was on pace for the fantasy points record. And then he comes out and absolutely duds 14 carries for 45 yards. Like it was bad. But I mean, Daniel Jones threw 3 interceptions too. The Steelers defense definitely had a plan and executed. And I think probably it started with making the Colts one dimensional with being able to stop the run. Even though they never really got out to a huge lead, like they led the entire, like most of the game, I should say. They were actually down 7-0 early, put up 17 points in the second quarter, but they were never like way up where the Colts had to pass the ball. They just did a good job of stopping the run.
Yeah, I like I said, it's hard for me to say they were exposed, but I do think they're going to have a hard time. You know, like if this happens again next week, then those conversations get a lot louder.
Definitely. And I did not see who the Colts play next week, so I'll leave that one just out there in the aura.
I can look it up while we talk about our next thing.
All right. We got next on here. Going back to the NFC, are the Rams the team to beat in the NFC? Now, they handled the Saints as they should have. They obviously are one of the 2 lost teams in the NFC. Definitely one of the teams that should at least be in the discussion.
Yeah, and the reason I added this one too is because you mentioned earlier in the show, some people argue the Eagles are the best team. That was a blocked field goal away from going the other way. Um, and then Matt Stafford is just playing lights out currently with, and Puka was banged up, but their defense is playing well. They added Roger McCreary. They're adding pieces. I wouldn't be surprised if they make another move. They kind of feel like they're going all in this year. Hindsight side note, the Colts play the Falcons. That's where but we can go back to the Rams now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think Matt Stafford, the first quarter of the season, you had those Baker Mayfield MVP things. I think you could throw Matt Stafford's name in the hat the way he has played, especially of late. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on where you place the Rams in the upper echelon of the NFC or maybe the NFL in general.
I was kind of going back and forth on it. Like, do I think they're the best team in the NFC or not? I'm pretty sure if I say I think it's the Eagles, you'll just say I'm biased. But they've added even more pieces than the Rams have. I can argue that they beat the Rams, but that blocked field goal, like that game's an anomaly. But that just shows it's so close. Honestly, that matchup, if it happens again in the playoffs, could literally go either way. And last year, there was a blowout in the regular season, but in the playoffs, it came down to what was it, 20 yards away from the end zone to win the game in the snow. So like it was just as close basically last year in the playoffs as it was here. Those 2 teams I think have to be at the top for me right now. Just because of pedigree and how they've matched up now twice in a row. The Bucks and the Packers right on their tail. Packers I think need to show more consistency on offense. I should throw the Lions in there as well. They've kind of been inconsistent as well. They also disappeared this week somehow. And the Bucks, I think, have to be up there because they're doing this so banged up. If they get healthy by the playoffs and Baker's still playing the way he is, like they could be a real contender. But I think for right now, I'll put my bet on the Rams with the Eagles in a very close second.
Yeah, and if you want to say the Eagles, I think that's fair. Um, just to since I mentioned that Matt Stafford playing lights out right now, whatever they did in that chamber to get his back rolling, so he could carry this team to through 9 weeks, 2,100 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 116 plus passer rating, like playing super well with Puka Nakua in and out of the lineup, getting stuff done, and I think they're playing some of their best football. Sometimes teams peak too early, though. Like we see
Mhm,
that all the time. Like could the Rams be peaking a little bit too early? We'll have to wait and see. But I do agree with you. I think obviously I think you still got to put the Eagles one. They're the defending champs. They're still playing well. They haven't been that inspiring in all their games, but they're finding ways to win, and that's what good teams do. I put the Rams second. I know they lost. I'd probably still put the Lions third, and then 4 or 5 Bucks and Packers. Bucks, their record's really good, but they had to come back in so many games. The Packers lost some inconsistency, so that's kind of how I do the top 5 in the NFC.
yeah, it honestly is pretty muddy because all 5 of those teams are very close, and you can argue if X happens, this team's the best. If Y happens, this team's the best, and it might come down to who ends up getting home field even on who ends up getting out of the NFC. If you make Tampa Bay go up and play in the snow, if you make um the Lions go play outside,
Mhm.
or I know it's not the greatest home field advantage. If you make the Eagles have to go out west to play in LA, maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, that 1 seed is going to be important, and I think these division winners for honestly, we're maybe doing a disservice by not including Seattle in this conversation too, the way they've been playing as well.
And that's a home
Uh,
field advantage actually right there.
I mean, but they're road warriors. They're undefeated on the road this year, 4-0. So they actually have a better road record than a home. But we all know about the 12th man up in Seattle. But like Seattle and the the Rams, people will be like, talk about the 49ers too, because their record is really good. They're just really banged up and they continue to get worse. So but like which one of them gets the home field, which one of them has to go on the road the 3 times. The same thing with the Lions and the Packers. Which one gets the home game in the first, even if it's not the bye, but which one gets the home game and only has to go on the road twice, maybe only once in the NFC Championship game, depending on how high the seeding is. Uh, Seeding seems very important. I mean, it always is, but it seems very important this year in the NFC because there does seem to be a top 5, 6 teams, and how those teams fall in order and where they have to go could cause who wins where.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned we added the Seahawks and the 49ers into that group. That's 7. I would be shocked at this point if that 7 isn't the 7 in the playoffs in the NFC. And I know there's other teams that are close. The Bears are close. The Panthers actually are right on their tail as well. If the Cowboys could learn how to play defense, they could have actually come up, but they've kind of fallen behind. If they get a win tonight, they're kind of back in the discussion with the tie, having that weird tiebreaker scenario there. Um, but really, like those seem to be the clear cut 7. But it's not like there's a 2, 3 clearly on top. It's like 7 teams in a dogfight.
Hmm. Yeah, and really, I think it's like San Fran is going to be the team fighting. I mean, they're still winning. Mac Jones is playing great football right
Yeah, they're
now.
doing this without Brock Purdy. And I mean, I'm not a Brock Purdy guy, but you have to think it's probably better with him than Mac Jones.
I mean, I don't. Mac Jones is playing really good football right now. Like I don't know how much of a uptick. Over the course of a season. I do think Brock Purdy is better. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the way Mac Jones has filled in for this couple weeks. I don't know how much better Brock Purdy makes them than what they're already getting at from the quarterback position.
That's fair. Like it's not that Purdy's not better. It's just that you in the short term, yeah, you haven't really had any drop off. That's a good point.
It's almost like the Jacoby Brissett filling in for Tom Brady when he was suspended for deflating footballs. Like they
It's
still
almost
went
like
three and
Jacoby
one.
Brissett filling in for Kyler Murray so far this year. There hasn't been a change.
But like you could, like obviously Brissett played as well as he possibly could to make the transition back
Yeah.
not that great. Like it wasn't like, oh, we need this guy, and it's granted them the ability to not have to rush Brock Purdy back.
Jimmy Garoppolo had another great transition there too, didn't he? With Tom
Yeah,
Brady? Yeah. And that's how he got his job in San Francisco for a while.
Maybe it was Jimmy G and not Brissett. I don't remember.
Yeah, Brissett came from that too, but I think it was Jimmy G you're thinking of.
Probably. And
Yeah.
that's how he got the job in San Fran. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel as old.
It's been a while, and that's pretty sad because that was we grew up with that whole era. But anyway, I'll throw up a comment from YouTube. Sal said he traded George Pickens for Rico Dowdle. He has Chase, Rice, Quentin Johnston, Booty, and his running backs are Achan and Taylor. Had Scattaboo and Hubbard. Pickens for Dowdle. If you had told me that 3 weeks ago, I would have said that's horrible. But now it doesn't seem too bad.
Yeah, I think because of who you got, like I think it made sense to bolster your running back room, and Dotto has been playing really good football. And then I like that you still have Hubbard as the handcuff. If something happens to Dotto, you have another guy you can count there. So, yeah, Rice has come back and been a big part of that offense, and then you're flexing between Booty and Johnson. So it still feels like a little bit like a lot, but the way Dotto has played, I think it makes sense for your team.
I'm sure it didn't work out super great this week. Just, I mean, with Achan had a decent like an A week and JT, fumbled it. But I mean, that overall, that's a solid lineup I would bet on most weeks from what I can tell. I mean, I had a situation in the World Cup where I had Taylor and Gibbs. That was not a good week for me. Those two have been carrying me to wins, and now all of a sudden this week they've combined for like 11 points.
Same. I have a league that's I don't have Taylor, but I have Gibbs and someone else who fell flat on their face.
Yeah, it was a very weird week for fantasy, is the way I can put it. One more question here. I was going to throw a question at the end of what trade you want to see at the deadline. You and I have kind of talked a lot of trade deadline, and I think we're actually going long a little bit, so I can leave it off, and we'll just kind of mix stuff in the rest of the show if there's anything you want to say for that. But one more question here. Will the Bills beating the Chiefs end differently this time?
Obviously, that relates to the fact that they've now beat them 5 straight times in the regular season, but can't get over the hump in the postseason. And man, don't let Kansas City come in there and beat you again.
No, please don't.
But sign me up. I mean, that game alone, sign me up for that to be the AFC Championship game. I'm all for that.
And could you imagine what that would be like if it was? You would have to imagine, unless things change drastically, that game would be in Buffalo. It'd be the last game in the old stadium. It would be the Ken Allen finally get over the Mahomes mountain. Like, that would be an absolutely insane game. As much as you want to and don't want to see the exact same AFC Championship again, it's just every single time it's a good game. So it's kind of hard to argue, like, I don't want to see it. I think what we don't want to see is the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, but it would be an atmosphere.
Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up for a Chiefs in Buffalo AFC Championship game.
Close out that stadium the right way.
Losing, just like the Bills have done. I'm sorry, Bills fans, don't come after me.
Oh, man.
Sorry, Mikey B.
Why don't we, before you get yourself in more trouble, why don't we go to the fantasy waiver wire? All right, this was an interesting week for the waiver wire as well, just because a lot of the guys that broke out, I'm like, don't know how much I love them long term, or like we're kind of going back and trying to fill in gaps of guys who might have gotten dropped over the last 2 weeks with all the injuries and bye weeks that have happened. But one thing I was super surprised to see is Trey Benson, potential lead back in Arizona, was in the 50s in percentage owned on NFL.com.
Yeah, because he should be in your IR spot. So
owned in every league we're in, but he was available in it was like 45% of leagues, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I would if he's out there, just go at him for sure. But some of the other running backs to pay attention to this week, obviously Kyle Monangai had a really big game. How much of that was the Cincinnati Bengals? How much of that was the amount of points scored? But if Swift is inactive, he's going to be the guy. So he'd probably still be my top target. Then you'd have Devin Singletary, Tank Bigsby, and Dylan Sampson.
a lot of guys in there that are like Singletary actually ended up having more field time than Tracy. Not that I really love him. I think Tracy's going to be the guy long term. The other guys are like Bigsby, maybe for an injury, Sampson, maybe for an injury. Like, that's kind of where we're at this point. It's going to be a lot of wait and see with some of the guys on Thursday, but you want to get ahead if you're going to need a running back for the short term by grabbing them on the wire.
Yeah. But hopefully, Monungai can help you if DeAndre Swift is out. And don't tell my wife, but she forgot to check her lineup on Sunday morning. Had Swift in there. Pretty sure she has Monungai on the bench just in case, and forgot to make the switch. And it's going to cost her.
Ooh, yeah, those are tough ones. This is where we're going to go back to the argument about the injury replacements, right?
Yes. Injury replacements.
One day the fantasy world will catch up to it. All right, wide receivers. I have 3 on here. First one, Christian Watson. Obviously, seeing if we can get some of the explosive plays and the fill-ins from Tucker Kraft. I got Alec Pierce, who has been another big play guy for a Colts offense that has been pretty explosive so far. And then Parker Washington, who is now the number 1 in Jacksonville with all the injuries that have been happening with them. That's obviously if Brian Thomas doesn't go.
Yeah, I mean, Parker Washington's probably my top pickup for this week between running back, wide receiver. If Trey Benson's in your lineup, I would still take him. But Parker Washington, still only 23 years old. He was, an upper tier draft pick. He wasn't like a first round or second round. I don't think he was. I believe he was later than that. But
yeah,
fills in. Obviously, no Travis Hunter. Banged up Brian Thomas Jr. If you need a spot start, I think that would be at least a guy I would look to. And I'm pretty sure they're not on bye this week. That was the only thing I was going to double check. Yeah, they are. I think we're back to. Yeah, they're not on bye. Still only 4 teams on bye this week, but there is a lot of wide receivers because it's Cincinnati, Dallas, Kansas City. So some
definitely
receivers
somebody who could fill in. Even if Brian Thomas plays, like Washington's going to have a role with not having Travis Hunter there, and Thomas hasn't been that great anyway. 6th round draft pick, by the way.
Yes. For some reason, after I said second, I was like, there's no way he was a 2nd round pick, but just in case, thank you for clarifying.
I got you. And then maybe the shot in the dark that worked the best all season that I've seen. Cody saying stream Colston Loveland last week, and man, did he go off, including that ridiculous game-winning touchdown catch late in the 4th quarter. Crazy.
Yeah, that's probably one I'm not chasing points on, but let someone else spend all the fab on him. Remember, that was his first game over 4 fantasy points this year, so that's something that I'd pay attention to. And I don't know what the own percentage is for this guy, and we don't typically talk to quarterbacks too much in here. But Jackson Dart, if he's available, he is becoming borderline every week startable with his running ability. I believe since he took over in week 4, he is fantasy quarterback number 3 on the season since week 4. So some of that, there is bye weeks that play into that and stuff like that, but he's playing really good. If he's still owned and you're tired of streaming a quarterback, or you want something a little bit more consistent because of his running ability and he's playing well enough, I would look at him.
He is 71% owned on NFL.com, but I'm sure he's still at least somewhat available in some leagues. I mean, right now we're looking at floor of 15 and ceiling of about 29 points, which is very good for a quarterback.
Yeah, definitely like that for sure.
I think that wraps up the waiver wire. Obviously, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in our DMs. But why don't we hit a quick Monday night preview before we get out of here?
I don't think I have a bumper for that one either.
You don't. This is your weekly reminder to make a bumper for that, as well as the other stuff on Thursday you probably won't make a bumper for. Congratulations. Cardinals at Cowboys tonight. Obviously, no Kyler Murray in the lineup for the Cardinals. They're 3.5-point underdogs on the road, over under 53.5, which is pretty high. We expect a lot of offense with the Cowboys having that explosive offense and having one of the worst defenses in the league so far.
Yeah, and obviously the big inactive news is Kyler Murray is inactive. It will be Jacoby Brissett, which everyone thought Kyler would be back until practice started. But Jacoby will be out there. You'd have to think you like Marvin Harrison in this game just because of how bad this defense has been. It's really just like how many points. Over unders only 53.5. So you need like a 20, 27, 24 game to break that. But outside of that, actually, does that even do that? Is that 51? You might need a little bit higher.
Yeah, you need a little higher. 53.5. It doesn't feel like a lot, but when it comes to over unders, it's actually pretty high. Normally you're in the 40s.
So they have a high over under in this game. It should just be a fun game. Like, I think Dak Prescott's in for a big game. Arizona looked really good to start the season. They definitely had their struggles. Obviously no bigger than the game against the Titans, but should be a fun Monday night game to wrap up week 9.
Yes, it should, Cody. I'm hoping for a Ferguson donut today. I'm sorry if anyone out there has Ferguson, as I need it to make up 18 points with Marvin Harrison facing Ferguson in the World Cup, thanks to my running backs going up a dud. So
hopefully that pays out for you. There's a lot of people out there that probably need some weird things. I need, what did I say, 25 points from Dak Prescott. I need a big game from him to win a league. I need Pickens and McBride to outscore Lamb by 25. Can I get real crazy now? Like, can we do something like that?
You need a George Pickens game, not a CD Lamb game. But no, I mean, should be a good game. I think there's going to be a lot of points. So if there's anyone out there with fantasy implications, it could be a little bit of a heart wrencher in that case. But hopefully, at least it stays close and it's not a blowout.
For sure. Do you got YouTube TV? Are you able to watch this game?
I do have YouTube TV, but I am still able to watch this game.
You got outside sources, what you're saying.
Yeah, it's called the Parents.
Parents cable login. That's how you get around the YouTube TV, Disney, ESPN, catastrophe. I'm just double checking real quick to make sure I didn't miss any inactives for any of these guys. Nah. I think we're good. So since we have 3 minutes left before we hit the hour mark, let's go back to your question.
Okay.
Trade deadline, 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. What trades do you want to see?
I personally don't want to see the Dolphins trade either Waddle or Achane. I just feel like that would be wrong to me. But I wouldn't be shocked if they do it if someone wants to pay up, just because I think they're gonna move on from Tua. It'll be a little bit of retool there. The person I want to see moved, because I think the ceiling is crazy high and we haven't seen him with a quarterback that's produced a ton, is Chris Olave. And I've just been struggling to find the right place to put him, though.
Yeah, Chris Olave is tough. Like, New England's involved in a wide receiver, but I don't know. It just feels like they're going to reunite with Jacoby Myers and continue that, like, kind of no true number one, but a bunch of good number twos and just make it work from there. Chris Olave would make, yeah, he's a tough find. Like, who's going to be like, I think he's worth the value to go out and get if you could.
It's just tough because a lot of the teams that are performing well have that. Like, I think Chris Olave would be great in Green Bay, but it doesn't fit what they're doing. I think Chris Olave would be a big help to San Francisco, but once everyone gets healthy, there's no point in them spending on that. Seattle could use a little bit of help, but I mean, Torrey Horton has been fantastic, the rookie there, when they've not had Cooper Kupp, and then JSN's been so good that it just doesn't make sense for them to pay up for it. Like, that's the problem with it.
Yeah, looking at it, like, I was going to say maybe like a Washington, but again, are they going to, want to buy in? They made a deal with the Saints last year. Could they do another one at the deadline? I like the San Fran one, especially, it doesn't sound like they're getting Ayuk back this year. Ricky Pearsall still banged up, and I think Pearsall and Olave could be a fun pairing for the future. But yeah, that's a tough one to figure it out. I think, like you mentioned, Chuba being an interesting name going some places. But Breece Hall is the name that I'm watching the most. I think he's a super talented player. Almost getting wasted in New York, and just like, is there a team that would make sense for, going out and getting him? Whether that is, a Chargers, because they need a guy. Like, does Denver love Dobbins and Harvey enough that they don't want to go out and get a running back? Obviously, the Chiefs, there's been a lot of buzz about that situation for sure. So even Houston, like
I was about to say, give me a spicy one and say Breece Hall to Houston.
Like that one could be, they're a young team. Breece is a young player. That's the name I'm going to be paying attention to. I expect it to be a lot of low-end defensive linemen, cornerbacks, maybe a linebacker or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say over under 3.5 trades made tomorrow. So I'm not going to count the Jalen Phillips, not going to count the Jair Alexander, Roger McCreary, any of those. 3.5 trades between now at 7:31 Eastern on November 3rd to the trade deadline tomorrow. 3.5 over under.
Considering some NFL trade deadlines are completely quiet and some are absolutely mad, I think that's a solid number that would shake up the league a little bit. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of massive names like Trey Hendrickson getting moved or anything like that. I just personally don't see it. Myles Garrett, I don't see him getting moved. But I think the biggest name that I think has a legit shot is Breece Hall. So it's someone I'm watching too.
So over under. What's your pick?
Do I have to set the number? You want me to say over or under?
No, I said 3.5. Just tell me over.
I'll go over.
All right, I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be a quiet day. I think we're going to be a little bit disappointed. It's going to be a lackluster day. But in good old-fashioned Couch DMs tradition, we're going to have breaking news in the next 9 minutes, because anytime you hear the but we'll keep you updated on Thursday when we're back live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, getting you ready for Week 10. If you have any questions or want to join the chat, feel free, or hit us up on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, all those good places. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurth.
Titans traded Draymond Jones to the Ravens. You're welcome.
There you go. That's one. I'm counting it. See y'all on Thursday.